The heat of this summer isn't slowing down, so I guess it's time to take a look at a clan that might make things feel a little bit better, but looking at this boss monster, it might be the opposite. Hello and welcome everyone to today's deck preview, in which we're going to be taking a look at Aqua Force, specifically the Maelstrom build, which I don't think is the better build for Aqua Force in Standard, but as the deck preview format has been going mostly with showcasing the VRs, we have to just by rule, I guess, look at him. But honestly, as we go over this deck, if you want to have both a cheaper variant as well as a more competitively viable variant, I do recommend replacing Maelstrom with Naval Gazer, but I did test Maelstrom just for this video, and I'm going to share my thoughts on him as well as what I think of the whole deck as a whole, and then we're obviously going to go into a game to show what the deck can do as well. So let's get right into it. This is the usual Axel clan, and I put our starter on the top of it now, so there's your Axel marker as well as the starter, which is Eric. Same skill as every single time. When you're right on top of him, draw one card, but you know, he's still a good card because this clan doesn't really generate much consistent advantage outside of, you know, this initial draw, so that's something to keep in mind. Now, Maelstrom, he does hold the Axel marker, and he is our grade 3 with 12k power. First skill is Vanguard Circle, act once per turn, cost 1. For that turn, the units in your front row get plus 3k power. So, this, honestly, if it was 4k, it would be fine, but 3k just doesn't really make a big difference because 3k plus 9, which most of your grade 2s, or all of your grade 2s really will be, is only gonna be 12. If it was plus 4, it would be 13, therefore it could at least hit force numbers. But instead of that, we get this, which is, you know, with grade 3s, sure, you can hit 15, which you can hit the force numbers, but otherwise, it's just a little bit of a power boost. It's good when you're going first. You can make 19 columns very easily when you're going first, but going second, it's really hard to come back even with the use of the first skill, and you use a lot of counterblast in this deck, so, you know, you want to be careful when you use that first skill, so make sure if you're going first, it's worth it, but going second, try to check if it's worth it before you use it. Second skill, however, is Vanguard Circle auto once per turn. When your rearguard's attack hits a Vanguard, if it is the third or fourth battle of that turn, you can discard 2 cards from your hand and stand this unit. So it stands the Vanguard again, meaning you get your fresh 2 drive checks again. Now, it's specifically third or fourth, and you know, we'll call it wave because it's basically wave. This is what we used to call them back in the G era, so for you new players, when it specifically says which battle has to hit, it's like wave 3 or wave 4. So basically, on third or fourth rearguard battle, it's gonna go off. But the sad thing is that I was playtesting the deck, and you know, I had a turn where I could do 5 attacks. So it's like, first attack didn't hit, and then second attack, which was him, did hit, but you know, that doesn't matter. Then third attack doesn't hit, fourth attack doesn't hit. I go in for the fifth one, it hits, and I'm like, oh, then I can use Maelstrom, and I'm like, wait, it's not third or more, it's just third or fourth. And that's honestly really detrimental in my opinion, because that way you lose the pressure of that last attack, you know, hitting, and it has to hit the Vanguard too, which is even worse because once your opponent is at 4 damage, this doesn't really do much. But going first, I think it's good. Again, this deck, going first, it's really good, but, well, not really good, but it's like, it's a lot better than going second. And my other gripe with this skill is that even though you get the like, let's say you do hit on third or fourth battle, and your Vanguard does restand, it restands with usually 12k. You can't even hit Force grade 3, so unless you stack triggers on him preemptively, which, you know, isn't even a good idea because you don't know if those rearguards are gonna hit. You know, it's just such a weird skill, honestly. So I think just for this reason, Naval Gazer is better because he at least consistently restands your units and you can make a clear winning image. With this, your winning image is like, okay, I'm gonna rush early game and then we'll see what happens once I read grade 3, you know, or it depends who goes first. So I think you can tell I'm not very happy with Maelstrom, to be honest. So I think he could have been a lot better, but in the end we got this, and I think, you know, it's still, I don't want to say it's super bad, because I've won games where I just go first, I rush really hard turn 2, I ride this, I use the first skill, and then my opponent just loses because my numbers are too big and I'm restanding too much thanks to my rearguard. So I think what makes this deck shine is the rearguards, so that's why I say that Naval Gazer is the better one, because he makes your rearguards shine even more. So, moving along to the grade 3s, we don't play Naval Gazer in this because I wanted to take the maximum of Maelstrom instead of just saying, okay, just run 4 Maelstrom, 3 Naval Gazer. So, I think Naval Gazer and Maelstrom are 2 different builds. I do agree that Naval Gazer pops off better when your opponent's at 4 or 5 damage, while this is better before your opponent is at 4 damage. But I think in the end, it's still better to just run them separately, but do feel free to try both. I just think I like both of these supporting grade 3s, and that's why I want to run both of them. So, first off is Storm Rider Diamantes. His first skill is Vanguard and Rearguard Circle, and he does have Axle Marker in case you misride. So when he attacks, if this is the first battle of that turn, then for this turn he gains plus 3000 power, which is nice. 15k attacker, hits force numbers, and just overall very nice, and can hit any grade 2 for magic numbers too. Second skill is once per turn Rearguard Circle only. When he attacks, if it's the third battle of that turn or more, you counterblast 1 and discard 1 to stand him, and he loses 3k. Now, because of this wording, when you attack with him and use the skill, he has to stand immediately, because when it's a third or more battle, counterblast 1 and discard, and then stand him. So it doesn't wait until the end of the battle, just when you declare battle. And the bad thing is that on declaration, he will lose 3k, because you will attack with him for the first time, and then immediately use the skill to stand him, and you already lose 3k. So you do need the 3k buff from Maelstrom in that sense, because otherwise he's not even gonna hit 12. So I think honestly, like, I usually call him to the Axle circles to make sure that he hits no matter what. But it's a bit of a shame that that's how the skill is worded. It would have been better if it was at the end of the battle, if it was the third battle or more, kill almost 1, discard 1, stand him, minus 3k. But here you get both attacks minus 3k, so it's honestly a little bit unfortunate. And he only gets the extra plus 3k on the first battle otherwise, so yeah, it's really not that great. And the discard one is also does hurt a bit, so you only really use him when you're super far ahead and you use your other restanders otherwise. This grade 3 is actually quite good. It's kind of like the Riser one, so it doesn't have the gift symbol, but he has the first continuous skill on Rearguard Circle. He can only attack during the fourth or more battle, otherwise you can't attack from wave 1 to 3 basically. But his second skill on Rearguard Circle, when he attacks for that battle, he gains plus 20k, so 32k attacker, very, very nice. So for that reason I think he's very good and definitely worth running. But, you know, you obviously, if you miss right into him, it is a big shame, but you can still attack with him even if you have him on Vanguard, because that fourth battle or more skill is only on Rearguard Circle, so it's fine if you miss right him, but you do lose out on the Axle, which is really important. So you can cut him down to 1, maybe run a third Diamantes, maybe cut one of each to run 2 or 3 Naval Gazers, you know, whichever way you want. But I think he is a good card in the end. Just, you know, kind of be careful when you use him, and obviously if your starting hand he is the only grade 3, then you do want to mulligan him away, because you'd rather even run into Diamantes as your first ride. So there's that. Now we're finally done with the grade 3s after like 8 minutes, but going into the grade 2s, this is our trial deck grade 2 Algos. So he's actually really nice. On Vanguard Circle he has a skill that when he attacks, if it's the third battle of that turn or more, you counterblast 1, Soul Blast 1, and stand one of your rear guards. You can stand an attacker, but you can also stand one of your back rows, which, you know, I'll explain why in a bit later. And then his second skill is on Rearguard Circle. When he attacks, if it's the first battle of that turn, then you can counterblast 1 and stand him. So he attacks for 9k, if it's the first battle, counterblast 1, stand him. So very straightforward and makes him very good. Early rush is very strong in this deck, so if your opponent crits you early on, that's actually a good thing, because that's more that you can do on turn 2. So actually, you know, it's good going first if your opponent crits you, and then turn 2 you rush them really hard, and then it's really hard for them to come back. It depends on matchup obviously, but most decks can't really come back from the early rush that Aqua Force can produce. So he is a good card, and he pairs up with one of our grade 1s that we'll take a look at a bit later. But second is our good old Tidal Assault. I think he's quite good. He's actually a really nice grade 2. So his skill is Rearguard Circle once per turn. When he attacks, Soul Blast 1, then you can stand him, and if it's the second battle or more, then he loses 5k. So he does have to be the first one to attack, which kind of does clash with him. So you're either going to do first battle with him to get another, to stand him for 1 counterblast, or you're going to do first battle with him to stand him for 1 Soul Blast and not lose 5k. So you don't usually have both, I want to say, because often my grade 2 lineups tend to be, maybe I'll ride into him on turn 2, and then I'll call myself a Tidal and a Basil, and that's going to be a really strong turn 2 play. So I think if you can open a card, you know, a hand like that, you're going to be dominating very hard over that match. But otherwise, you know, they do clash a little bit, but I think other than that, they are both good cards. So it's more like you use one or the other in terms of rearguard skills, and, you know, but Tidal is still really, really nice. And, you know, it's important to have cards like Tidal and Algos, because they enable the combos and like enable this to get plus 20k, they enable Maelstrom and stuff like that as well, so it is quite important. And next we play 3 Storm Rider Basil. His skill is when he attacks the Vanguard, if it's the 3rd battle or more of that turn, you can counterblast 1, and for that battle he gains plus 5k. But if it's the 4th battle or more of that turn, then he gains plus 10k instead of 5k. So usually going to be a 19k attacker, so very strong. With boost he'll be hitting for 27, which is usually a magic number against every Axel and Protect clan. So he's actually a really good card. You know, he's only a common, but that extra 10k does help quite a lot. It's a bit expensive, like a lot of these skills cost counterblast, so you need to be careful. This is counterblast, this is counterblast, this is counterblast, this is counterblast, and then for grade 1s we don't, but we do have a counter charger, so that's the nice part. Then moving into grade 1s, the best art in the clan in standard, in my opinion, sadly isn't very good. So this is Bibiana. When the attack that she boosts hits a Vanguard, for that, if it's the 3rd battle or more of that turn, you can put her into the soul to draw 1 and give one of your units plus 3k. So the on hit is really disappointing. I think if her skill was, you know, we have to run her because she's just about the only card that can draw for you, you know, other than your starter. So I think just for that reason you do want to run her, and the on hit pressure is nice. You know, you just put it behind like one of your titles or something, and you know, just something like that. There's also interesting combos that you can do, for example with Algos, where you can attack, you can boost her with your Tidal Assault, and then the Tidal Assault restands on his own, and then you can maybe attack with the Algos to restand her, and then you'll have the extra on-hit pressure or something like that. So there are some plays that you can make with her, but I think overall, like, her skill would have been better if it was just, if it's the 3rd battle of that turn or more, at the end of the battle, put her into Soul, draw 1, like, without the on-hit requirement, basically. So I think it just needs to, if it boosted and it attacked the Vanguard, it doesn't have to hit the Vanguard. I think it would have been better that way, but in the end she's still okay, just about the best thing you can run currently, I think. But you know, depending on what the next Aqua Force support looks like, she probably might get shafted, which is a big shame because she's really good looking, so it's a bit of a shame. So moving on to, in my opinion, the best, one of the best grade 1s in the deck is Teo. So his skill is Vanguard and Rearguard Circle. When the attack or the attack that it boosted hits a Vanguard, if it's a 2nd battle of that turn or more, for that turn one of your units gets plus 8k. That is really big. The plus 8k can make a lot of difference, especially going first. You can actually, you know, pop off really hard and make some really big numbers to make your early rush even stronger. So I think for that reason, Teo, definitely a 4-of, very good trial deck card, and I think a lot of players will enjoy him. So I think he's pretty self-explanatory. Plus 8k is a really big deal. So moving on, we have the Anakin Penguin, as I believe the community likes to call him. So definitely a 4-of, because he's the only countercharger that the clan has that can consistently countercharge at least. So his first skill is, you can rest him as an act on Rearguard Circle to, for that turn, give a unit in the same column as him plus 5k. Now what's good about this is that you can use a skill to give 5k to something like a Tidal Assault, and then when you attack with your Algos, you can actually restand. For example, you can attack with the Tidal for 14, then he'll restand, and then you can attack with the Algos to stand the Penguin because he rested himself, and then the Penguin, you know, you'll get the 8k plus the 5k that he gave him, so you have this little combo going on here, which is quite nice. And then his second skill is, when your other unit attacks, if it's the 4th battle of that turn, you can retire him to countercharge 1. So he's basically like Airmo except a rare, which is definitely very nice. So because of how much this clan counterblasts right now in standard, I think is definitely worth to play 4 of the Penguin, because you can hit 4th battle on even turn 2 quite easily. So I think getting that extra countercharge is definitely quite worth it. So, and it's not end of the turn, it's just at the end, just when the 4th battle happens. So it's not even at the end of that battle, so you can potentially use his effect upon attack declaration of the 4th battle, and then, like, let's say it's something like, I don't know, Diamantes, and then you can refund the counterblast. Let's say you had no counterblast, you can refund a counterblast and then use that counterblast again on something like Diamantes. So I think he is a very good card, and, you know, ties with Teo, I think, for the best grade 1 in the deck right now. And then finally we have 2 of Dagger. This is Influent Dagger. So his skill is quite simple, but he's only a 7k, that's why I only played 2, but maybe you could cut one of these, one of Bibiana for another one of these, because he's actually quite good. So his skill is on Rearguard Circle. When your other unit attacks the Vanguard, if it's a 3rd battle of that turn or more, for that turn this unit gains plus 3k. So he's more or less a better Jet Riser. Potentially, I would even cut one Bibiana for a 3rd Influential Dagger, but, you know, it's you can test and see how you prefer it, but I think, you know, either of these lineups is fine, whether you want to run 4 of the Bibiana or 3 of the dagger. I think you run 4 of the Bibiana just because you can get her skill off a bit more in the early game and then get yourself an extra draw, which is quite important. So I think just for that reason, you know, she is good as a 4 of, but if you value the plus 3k more, then you should play the Influential Dagger instead, because he makes your numbers together with Maelstrom a lot better. So I think in that sense they do pair up quite well. And then for triggers, I run 4 of the perfect draws, obviously, 4 heals, and 8 crit. I know a lot of people would prefer to see fronts, and I think you can also just, it's kind of like with Touch Guys, that you either make a front build or you make a full crit build. I think that's kind of where the clan is at right now, because I like the crits more because it's kind of the same as the old Aqua Force in that sense, where you can stack the crits on something that can restand, because even though, like, let's say Tidal Assault will lose the 5k when he restands, if you stack 2, you know, even 1 crit on him, you know, a rearguard with a crit is more threatening, you know, because it's going to attack twice, so it's 2 times that your opponent has to guard against the crit, and you know, if you put it on an Axle Circle, that's even scarier, so your opponent really has to guard that. So I think for that reason, crits will always be better in Aqua Force, just for that simple reason. I would maybe cut down 2 for more draws. I didn't really, I don't know, I got to test a little bit, but I think just 8 crit feels more threatening for, you know, really going first. I think going second the deck and really just, if you brick especially, just kind of scoops, but right now I think this is sort of the lineup that's more or less optimal. But like I said, I think you should be running Naval Gazer instead of Maelstrom in general if you want to be playing Aqua Force on a competitive level. So that's just my opinion, and that does make the deck a lot cheaper too, because you have, what, 2 types of triple rares, 2 types of double rares, and then these are trial deck exclusives. So it does make the deck a lot cheaper as well, because that's a lot more trial deck cards too. So I think in that sense, you know, it's a lot more affordable, and it would be a much better deck as well. So we're going to talk about a lot more in depth in the budget video for this set, so do look forward to that coming out sometime in the near future. But you know, we're going to feature it quite prominently in that set's budget video preview. So on that note, that's going to be it for this deck preview for, you know, actual Aqua Force Maelstrom. So now let's get into a game. Going into this game, we're going to have a matchup against what is arguably the worst matchup for the clan, which is Kagero. So here I am playing against Zistral from Yellow Card Vanguard. As usual, my opening hand is quite alright. I had a couple triggers that I put back, and now it's looking quite alright. You know, I have the heal in hand, but overall we have a really strong turn 2 play with both the Algos and the Tidal. And, you know, I had a few games to pick for the one that I'm going to feature in the deck preview, but this one I picked for a few reasons, but one of them is for that really nice turn 2 play that you're going to get to see. So I get a crit, double crit in my damage zone, which is quite unfortunate, but here we go into the strong turn 2 play. Here I'm debating on the Influent Dagger, but I decide against it. We're going to gamble on my opponent not getting any damage trigger. So this is a 9k swing with the Tidal first. You Soul Blast and stand immediately, but the attack still goes through. So he guards the first one, I attack with the second one, then I attack with the Algos, whose condition is when it's the second battle or higher, so it can be the third. So then I attack with him, stand the Tidal, another attack, no trigger, but he also doesn't get any damage trigger, so this is the 4th attack that goes through, and I made him waste a card from hand as well. However, now the Berserk does get to hit my Tidal, but that's not a big deal because I have another one in hand. So I do have the Maelstrom, I have an Influent Dagger, and so I think that early play was honestly really good, and that shows that, you know, Aqua Force does have a lot of early pressure, which is 2 cards. Now I get the Basil, which I think is a really nice top deck, so here I can call the Influent Dagger, and I was really debating if I should maybe put him on the Axle Circle, because I was thinking, you know, I can call, if I'm really greedy, I can call the PG to the Axle Circle actually, and I think that's what I end up doing. But here the Influent Dagger I was really debating, because he can build up power on himself quite well, so I think he could also work as an attacker. So I do actually put him up in the end, because he does get plus 3k every time anything above the 4th battle, I think, or 3rd battle attacks. I think it's 4th battle though. But we do hit with a Maelstrom, and I did use Maelstrom skills to give everybody plus 3k, so this is attacking for 20k on its own, which is definitely quite nice. I made a bit of a mistake by attacking with its second. I probably should have held off for a little bit, but, you know, and it's also a big attack, so I'm not sure why I held off, but I think here I used the Tidal skill at first, but then I was like, oh wait, then it doesn't hit on any of the attacks, so then I attack with the Tidal without using the skill, so this is just 12 on my opponent's 10, so that way it is still hitting. So I think this was a misplay on my side. I should have attacked with the Tidal first, maybe, and then attack with the Maelstrom, and then attack with my rear guards after that. So now my opponent has guarded all of my third and fourth battle to make sure that my Maelstrom doesn't get the skill off. He goes into the Waterfall, which does get rid of my title, but I still have a Diamantis in hand, so I do have a replacement if things go wrong. Here he uses the Bar to get rid of the Storm Rider, and then he does call also the Spillover, which will also retire my last recard. So this really shows that this is a terrible matchup, and it is definitely quite hard to win. But I think overall, with the tempo that I had at the start, I did come quite close, because he didn't manage to build up hands too well, because I did go into it a little bit in the early game, and there I also get a draw, which is quite nice. But I did rip into his hand a little bit in the early game during that second turn, and I think it was quite hard for him to, regain momentum from there, going forward. But now, this turn is looking a little bit... I think I made some mistakes here, looking back at it, in just building numbers, so I apologize for the misplays in this match, but it was mostly for that early play that I really wanted to feature this one, because here I chose to call my PG behind the Diamantes, because I thought that, with Restand it would work out that way. But honestly, I should have called the Influent Dagger behind the Diamantes, because then, with the power additions from Influent Dagger and Maelstrom, in mind, I would actually be able to still hit for bigger numbers. So here we can see he got a heal on the damage trigger, and that's really huge because that shut down my attack. So I attack with the Penguin despite it not hitting, and now I'm like, oh, Diamantes doesn't even hit because it's not enough, because he has 3k, so that it's it's 15 on his own from the Maelstrom skill and then 5k from the PG. So if I would have called the Influent Dagger, that would have actually hit. And now because of that, I have 2 cards left in hand, and I'm actually gonna lose to this, which is definitely quite a shame. But the only reason why I also wanted to show this was because a lot of people in the comments were asking, oh, why do you only show games where you win? So I wanted to show off a game where actually, things don't go so well, and but there's still moments in the game that can be seen that where the deck does shine and how it can push numbers and control momentum. But sometimes in these kind of matchups it doesn't always go that well. So I hope you enjoyed this deck preview, because I think in the end the deck is still quite good, because as you can see, it can build boards quite well. It has really strong early game pressure, and it can create that from very few cards. The only problem is that it can get shut down by damage triggers quite easily, which I think definitely needs to be acknowledged. But it also has a similar thing as Nova Grappler, where it can build up good combos and fields from basically nothing. Like, you can just call out your units easily and then swing at your opponent's face. And then, but my only biggest gripe, I think, is that Maelstrom is his best part in the deck is the plus 3k, and sometimes it isn't even enough to make the proper play. So I think overall Naval Gazer is going to be the better build going forward for Aqua Force, but I think Maelstrom is still a fun deck, and I think the deck itself, the core of the deck, all the other grade 3s, the grade 2s, the grade 1s are what make the deck fun, not so much the grade 3 boss. So on that note, that's going to be it for me today. Hope you guys enjoyed this deck preview, at least to some extent. I really hope so. I hope I wasn't too pessimistic, but I was just trying to be realistic and really talk about how the clan is looking in Standard and what you can expect going into the future. So I hope it wasn't too harsh, but you still managed to enjoy it. But on that note, please don't forget to click the bell button, as well as check out the social medias in the description and join the Discord channel if you haven't already. But on that note, that's going to be it for me today, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye bye.